August 3rd, 2013. Leaving camp. I sat with Brian this morning to gorge on leftover noodles and fresh bread. The camp was an island of refuge for me. I was living in luxury. I had friends who spoke my language, a flowing spring, a cook, and even a chair to sit on. I felt a wonderful sense of abundance as I ate and drank without fear of running out. A big part of me wanted to stay another day and keep eating their food, but I can't get anywhere if I don't go anywhere. From deep within, I needed to stay on the move. Brian and his family did send me off with a supply of noodles and 2 large ornate cookies that were a gift from the local mayor. I thanked them for lifting my spirits and filling my belly, then left them behind as I rolled downhill. Brian sent me an email some months later after he completed his run. Glad we could give you a boost. In a way, your visit had the opposite effect on me. For weeks I had been out on those roads running alone. Even though I had a large support team, I felt all alone. No one could really understand how hard it is out there. When you stayed with us, I felt like you understood what I was going through, and that made us brothers. Brothers of toil, misery, heat, pain, freedom, and great joy. The morning you rode out of camp, I jogged along the ridgetops, following your progress. As you rode out of sight down the valley, I sat down and cried. Not sure why. Because there were so few cars on that road, dusty sand trap, I could follow your tracks for about 2 days. By the time we got into Ulaanbaatar, we figured you were already riding out of Mongolia. Your time with me in camp that night was bittersweet. For a brief moment, I had someone that could really understand what I was going through, and that was so encouraging. But your departure left me wishing we could have spent more time together. Oh well, next time. At the bottom of the hill, I arrived in a town of a few hundred people. There was a grid of dirt roads, and homes were all single-room log cabins with tin roofs. I found a street lined with shops hardly larger than the person sitting in them. I went into all 9 of the stores looking for a few days' worth of food, but there was little more than a sparse selection of candy, and only one of them even had bread. I was astonished that the residents were living off only the food available in those shops. I asked about a proper grocery store, but there seemed to be none. The town didn't have water either, though they expected a tanker to arrive in the afternoon. With nothing more to see, I bought 3 loaves of bread and followed a well-worn track heading east. I had a tough day once I left town. I felt my resolve fractured by the comforts of Brian's camp. One night with a modicum of ease had given me enough perspective to see how hard my journey truly is. As I crossed the hot, dry land, I fixated on the challenge of what I'm doing. My motivation waned, and I struggled to carry on. The landscape I biked through has become greener compared to the last 2 days. The bulbous hills are now topped by evergreen forests, and grass is covering the ground. There were more animals too. Herds of sheep and goats grazed on the open land, and for the first time, I saw yaks. 2 of them stood on the road ahead of me, large hulking beasts with thick fur hanging nearly to the ground. The hair on their heads had been given a bowl cut, and wispy feathered bangs hanging down to their eyes made for a bold fashion statement. They were obviously the trendsetters of the steppe, and pulled off an interesting mix of intimidation and style. They were large enough to make me nervous, and I waited for them to move away before I passed. My dinner tonight was a failure. I tried to make pasta, but because I was hungry, I put in too many noodles, and because I was afraid of running out, not enough water. The noodles dissolved into a sticky, starchy mess. I don't have food to spare right now, so I simply added sauce and ate the pot of goo. Now the sky is dark, and a herd of 30 horses is running laps around me. They go charging across the land as a group, and I'm worried that I'll be trampled in the dark. I'm laying down next to my bike in an attempt to look big enough to avoid, but I, and all my worldly possessions, creates only a very small pile in an otherwise vast and empty plain.